We now take you to the broadcast of It's Time with Rev Nathaniel W Martin. Here is Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Pastor Blackwell. And welcome to all of you who are viewing our podcast. I'm grateful to have the privilege to share with you. The name of our broadcast is It's Time. And what is it time for? It's time for justice. It is time for equality. It is time for economic justice, environmental justice, because we're destroying God's good earth, God's good ground, and the air above it, unfortunately. And it is time for man to treat man, his brother, and his sister fairly, don't you think? After all of these thousands of years and the wars that we have fought and the wars that we have tried to start, that we really need to learn how to live together. As Dr. King so eloquently said a long time, that man must learn to live together as brothers or die together as fools. Our marching orders come from the Bible, of all places. One of my favorite scriptures is to be found in Deuteronomy chapter 24 and verse 14, which deals with managerial and labor issues, supervisorial matters. And this is what it says: "Thou shalt not oppress an hired servant that is poor and needy, whether he be of thy brethren or of thy strangers that are in thy land within thy gates." Note the second verse 15, "At their day thou shalt give them their hire, neither shall the sun go down upon it, for they are poor, and setteth their hearts upon it, lest they cry against thee unto the Lord, and it be sin unto thee." I have used the third person pronouns they, their, in the place of his and him, because of the fact that I'm all-inclusive. The Bible, of course, is all-inclusive, and we don't want to make the women at this Women's History Month, International Women's History Month, be left out of the conversation. We thank God for the blessing that He has bestowed upon us. Pardon me for picking up this pen while we are on set. We thank God because of the fact that we have a standard, we have a pattern, He has given us a model of social equity and social ethics toward which we have been striving. And none of us can say that we have reached the mountaintop, as Dr. King prophesied, but that we will get to the mountaintop. To get there, we must therefore treat each other as the Bible says, "Do unto others as we would have them do unto us." Paraphrase is mine. Remember that Micah 6 and 8, which is another verse that I'm very fond of quoting, social gospel scripture, says, "He hath showed thee, O man, what is good." He hath showed. In other words, you don't have to go looking for how to treat each other, right? He has already shown you, O man, what is good. Reminds me of what is written in the 10th chapter of Romans when it says, "Who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord?" That is to bring Christ down again from above, or who shall descend into the deep? That is to bring Christ up again from the dead. But he said, no. That's not necessary. Those type of calisthenics and athletics are not called for, because it says the word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart. You may hear me paraphrase the scriptures. Sometimes that's age, and sometimes it's by deliberate intent. But the point remains the same, that we are not at this point in the history of mankind, of anthropology, of anthropos, or the Homo sapien upon the face of this good ground, we're not doing a good job with how we treat each other consequently, not in how we treat Mother Earth. And I think we need to get our house in order in that regard because of the fact that time is winding up. We're into International Women's History Month, and we thank God for Eve. We thank God for Sarah. We thank God for Hannah. We thank God for Coretta Scott King. We thank God for Harriet Tubman. We thank God for those who have pioneered and persevered in the spite of the cruel opposition and double standard that under which women, especially black women, have labored in the United States of America and indeed around the world. Because you look at how women are treated once you leave the shores of the United States of America, it tremendously declines, especially when you go into the countries typified by Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran and Mecca and all of those countries. They don't treat women quite as fairly there as they do here in the United States. Trading partner Saudi Arabia. Those women are still working, laboring, toiling, striving to get the right to drive a car for themselves. And so women have not really done that well around the world. Not even the European so-called white woman has done that great. She's made a niche for herself, of course, but she has not been very inclusive in bringing in all of her sisters. However, in order for the so-called white woman, I say so-called because we understand there is no such thing as a biological gene or DNA that can be identified in any biological experiment or genetic code as being white. Doesn't exist. Race really does not exist in nature. It's all a social construct, and it's one gigantic delusion that has been foisted, unfortunately, upon the face of the whole world. But that's the power of perception and the power of the sword, the power of violence, in that one man has been able to impose his view of reality upon the whole world, or if not upon the whole world, upon most of it. And he has reinforced it, and he has exported it, and he has violently insisted upon it, and thus the world is as it is. And we are laboring under these various delusions based upon race, based upon skin color, and we in the United States of America are just beginning to emerge. And I don't mean that we're out. I mean we are just beginning to emerge from this dark night of ignorance, let's put it plainly, ignorance that we have witnessed and experienced and endured based upon those false scientific truths, so to speak, or false scientific principles that have been set forth that people accepted as truth until the point where the world is about to be destroyed. And now we begin to find out that those principles were really false, based upon a false precept. And our syllogisms, in other words, are false. And so we are trying to correct ourselves. And I imagine the last group to get out from under the thumb, out from under the heel, will be women. But if the world really is to be saved, it's going to be saved by the women getting their just due, their just place, their just treatment, and for the achievements and for the contributions and for the work and the labor There's a lady on the radio who talks about unwaged workers, and that is the domestic workers, those that do work at home, not domestic workers, quotes as in those who are actually getting paid, but we're talking about women who work on a job and then come home and do that much amount of work or more before they get up and go back to work again. And so that's what you call unwaged work, childbearing, unwaged work, cleaning up the house, unwaged work, going shopping, unwaged work. And all of these things we have to recognize are so intrinsic in order for the economy and for the home and for the family and indeed for the society to exist. And so our hats off, we salute the women of the world, the women of the United States of America, and in the celebration and recognition of the deeds and the accomplishments, not only on the big public stage, but also on the bigger stage, which is the home. Because if there be no home, then there'll be no big public stage. No matter what you do up on the stage, when you get off of there, you still got to go home, which I had a witness. We want to recognize Miss Tarana Burke. Tarana Burke, who was a civil rights activist, who's still active here among us, and was one of the organizers or founders of the Me Too movement. And while we don't want to become controversial, we noticed that it didn't really she didn't get her just due until she just demanded that those that were seemingly usurping and supplanting her position, notice my language, recognized that she was really the founder and the starter and the thought behind the Me Too movement, which was a support organization for women and girls who had been sexually abused. And Miss Burke herself said she was a three-time survivor of sexual abuse, and her early work was with girls there in Tuskegee, Alabama, and it was revealed that the all too common story of abuse in these disadvantaged girls' lives. Ms. Burke makes the remark that in a room full of 30 girls, she expected around 5 or 6 Me Too's, but really there ended up being 20. So hats off to Ms. Tarana Burke on during International Women's Month. She started her professional career in Selma, Alabama, and of course we know that she is working hard and to make lives better and give women a platform to say that you just cannot abuse and mistreat and disrespect and dishonor and disinherit and dispossess me and think that we're going to put up with it any longer. So thank God that there is a voice out there speaking up for the oppressed among us. Not just me, but there are others, millions of others, thank God, around this country. And we support, at least I support, the women's movement. And we thank God. And Mr. Burke is due far more recognition than she is getting. They've thrown her a few tokens. I noticed that they gave her the opportunity to release the ball drop in Times Square in last year, 2018, and she was at the 75th Golden Globe Awards in 2018, and gave her a media platform to discuss the Me Too movement. All right, and hats off to Miss Burke. She's doing a great job. I want to continue in this vein, in this theme. Notice that in the writings of the Sacred Writ in the Bible, there's a little book in there called Ecclesiastes, and that book opens up by saying, "Vanity of vanity, all is vanity." And there is a new Nielsen report out. Headline: Nielsen Report, Black Girl Magic and Brand Loyalty, says is propelling total black buying power. Notice this: total black buying power is being propelled toward $1.5 trillion, that's with a T, dollars. Do you know how many tractor trailer trucks it takes to make $1 trillion? It would take 642 tractor trailers, with double stacks inside of pallets this high from the floor up, double stack, floor to ceiling, nose to door, 2 rows, double stack, and each stack containing $100 bills, nothing less, $100 bills, 642 tractor trailers to make up $1 trillion. And you're talking about $1.5 trillion, which would mean that would be 642 plus half of another 642 trucks, like another 321 trucks altogether. And that is a lot of buying power. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. When will we wake up and start harnessing our economic buying power and stop letting the establishment treat us like bozos and run us here and run us there and show us this style and show us that fad, and then disrespect us after we have paid our hard-earned mind you, money. We don't get our money easy like everybody else. Speaking of for myself, we had to get our money working hard. I mean, working hard. And there are many sacrifices that our people have been obliged and are required and are obligated to make in order to make ends meet. But yet, look at our collective buying power. And when you see how our people are being disrespected and dissed and discriminated against in so many of our public establishments, why, it's reminiscent of how it was when I was growing up. I'm 72 years old now. I can remember Jim Crow. I can remember the white-only signs and the colored-only signs, and the folk asking you, what do you want and why are you in here? What you doing in the store? And it's almost like that in today. It's almost back to that bad. And we cannot allow ourselves to be resegregated, and or we cannot allow ourselves to regress or to retrograde back to those awful days from which we had struggled and fought so hard to overcome, to reach this very point. We must therefore take serious consideration of what the Nielsen report is showing. It is taken from a larger report, which says that which is entitled "African American Women: Our Science, Her Magic," a Nielsen report released today. Now, notice how it starts out saying self-made and self-reliant. The number of businesses majority owned by black women grew 67% between 2007 and 2012, more than all women combined. So black women are starting their own efforts, their own businesses. And the latest U.S. Census figures show African American women have a majority ownership in more than 1.5 million businesses with over $42 billion in sales. So with that type of buying power and with that type of recognition, we must demand that our women get treated better, that our people are treated that much better. It says that black women are playing an increasingly vital role in how all women see themselves and influencing mainstream culture across a number of areas, including, get this, fashion, beauty, television, and music. It says that young, independent, and 24.3 million strong black women comprise 14% of all U.S. women and 52% of all African Americans. I mean, our women are doing extremely well in that sense. However, we know that in the larger sense, we are yet languishing. All right. It says relatively young with an average age of 35.1 years versus 42.8 years for non-Hispanic white women and 39.4 for all women. Black women have enjoyed steady growth in population, income, and educational attainment. When you look at this report, you think it's all coming up roses, but it's not all roses, and we know better. Is that right? 64% enroll in college right out of high school, and 23% over age 25 have a bachelor's degree or higher, up from 18% in 2005. All right. And that's a glowing report, and that is not from some fly-by-night organization. This is from the Nielsen Report. And what they have been doing is researching how black women spend their money, what black women buy, what they like to buy. And so this is something that has to be taken into consideration. I didn't read, I'm in process of looking at the findings of the report. One thing is, it said that only 38% of women give to religious or charitable causes, and that's not good. But you know for yourself, and I know for myself, that more women go to church than our brothers. And if it wasn't for the women at my church, we had to close up the door. He helped me. So we have to take account and of the advances and of the spending habits of our women. I know if you're married, you better watch what your wife is spending with that money. Now, you better have a good wife. She has a growing confidence. Now, this is the younger black woman, 35, 31 years of age, not mine age. It says that black women are not only redefining what it means to be a woman for themselves, but are at the vanguard, that means at the cutting edge of changing gender roles and unlimited possibilities for American women of all ages and races. All right? Isn't that beautiful? And yet, what are they spending their money on? Jewelry, beauty, automobiles, and the like. And how long does an automobile last? You drive it off the parking lot, it's losing its value. You buy a piece of jewelry, and after you had it about 6 months, you're sick of it. And so, as the preacher says, vanity of vanity, all is vanity. The word vanity in the final analysis means vapor or breath. And it's reminiscent of what the 90th number of the Psalms opens up by saying, we spend our years as a tale that is told. We coming forth as a flower, and we are as a smoke, we are as a vapor. In the morning we groweth up, and in the evening we are cut down and withered. Words to that effect. It means there's nothing there. There's no there. It's like a movie set or like a television studio set. When the show is over, you take down the set, there's nothing left. And so we need to leave a lasting legacy for ourselves and for our posterity. We must not spend our money up in luxuries. And all of us like luxuries. I like luxuries myself. But that must not be our main focus. That must not be our main objective. As Dr. King said, until a man has found something that he's willing to die for, he or she is not fit to live. And so we need to, 4 minutes? All right. I didn't get a chance to get on my rant about reparations today, but I remain steadfast and firm that we need reparations. I was looking at a YouTube broadcast clip where they were interviewing Bernie Sanders, and they asked him his view on reparation. He said, "Do that mean cut you a check?" And he said, "No." And he said, "No, he don't believe in it." But I believe that America cannot be America until you cut that check from slavery. The problem is a complex problem of how to distribute the funds and who is to receive the funds, who's qualified to receive the funds. But that is a secondary problem. The first problem is to acknowledge the guilt from slavery and the guilt from 100 years of Jim Crow segregation that was de jure affirmative action for white people. And then the next step, after you acknowledge that, is that yes, we owe reparations, and we want to do that because we want to make America whole. And America will never be whole and never be great until it deals with that great crime, that great sin committed against its own citizens, God's children, in 250 years of unrequited toil, which is a poetic way that a politician named Abraham Lincoln gently stated the matter. And mind you, at the time, he was in process of marching across Atlanta, devastating the Shenandoah Valley because of the effects of slavery, and that men who wanted to maintain slaveocracy were willing to destroy this very nation. And those considerations compel me to urge you again and again and to continue to petition the government for redress, to petition the government to give us and pay us those back wages from slavery, from the slaveocracy, and from the Jim Crow. Do you not know that if America had been fair, even in the beginning of the suburbs, if they had been fair, if in the GI Bill, or fair in the original manifestation of the Social Security administration, that we wouldn't be at this point now. The wealth gap would be different, be far shrunken, far smaller than it is. Although there would still be a wealth gap from slavery. Finally, my brothers and my sisters, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, male and female, young and old, I must continue to tell you, as I have told you before, if you're working and they appreciate everything you're doing, and they always tell you how much they love you and how much they appreciate you and how much the place wouldn't work without you, if they ain't put it in that paycheck, it don't mean a thing. What am I saying over and over and over and over? My brothers, if they don't want to pay you, don't work for them. God bless you. Thank you, Doc.
All of my good days, outweigh my bad days. Yes, they do. I just say thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Lord.
I won't